In Hollywood, stars rise fast, but they fall even faster. One moment, you're being hailed as the next big thing, handpicked by Steven Spielberg himself. The next, your name's a trending topic for all the wrong reasons, and your face is plastered across viral memes you never asked for. Rachel Zegler was supposed to be a fairy tale come to life, a virtual unknown who landed the role of Maria in West Side Story through a viral audition tape, an industry Cinderella story if there ever was one. She had the voice, the screen presence, and most importantly, Spielberg's blessing. The media adored her. Fans flocked to her socials, and the buzz was electric. It wasn't a matter of if she'd become a star, it was how big, how fast. But somewhere between the red carpets and press tours, the story took a sharp turn. What began as whispers of behind-the-scenes tension turned into full-blown controversy. And then came Snow White. What was meant to be a crowning moment in her career quickly spiraled into a PR disaster, and Rachel Zegler, once praised for her poise and promise, became a lightning rod for backlash. So what happened? Was Rachel simply misunderstood? A rising talent caught in the brutal machinery of internet outrage? Or was there something deeper? Something Hollywood insiders saw that the public missed? This isn't just a story about a movie star. It's a cautionary tale about fame, ego, silence, and the terrifying speed at which public opinion can flip. Because in the entertainment industry, it's not enough to shine. You have to survive the spotlight. And Rachel Zegler's story, that's where things get complicated. Before the controversy, before the memes, Rachel Zegler was Hollywood's golden girl. She didn't come from a powerhouse acting family or ride a reality TV wave. She was just a high school student from New Jersey who uploaded a video of herself singing online. That one video changed everything. Out of tens of thousands of hopefuls, Spielberg saw her, and just like that, she became Maria in his long-awaited remake of West Side Story. Critics were dazzled. Her voice had range, her screen presence was magnetic, and the story felt like something straight out of a movie itself. Major outlets called her the future of cinema, and Spielberg couldn't stop praising her raw talent. In interviews, Rachel seemed both overwhelmed and deeply grateful. She spoke about watching Spielberg's films as a kid, about pinching herself on set, and about wanting to do justice to such an iconic role. It wasn't just the film industry cheering her on. Social media adored her too. Fans praised her poise, her humility, and the way she spoke about her journey, like she still couldn't believe it was real. Her posts went viral, her follower count skyrocketed, and she was booked for red carpets, interviews, and fashion campaigns seemingly overnight. For most newcomers, that kind of exposure takes years. Rachel had it in months. She was, by every definition, a breakout star, the kind that Hollywood loves to build and sometimes loves to break. But even during this magical rise, there were small, almost invisible warning signs. A few murmurs here, a backstage comment there. At the time, no one took them seriously. Why would they? Rachel Zegler was Spielberg's hand-picked star. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. Behind the polished press interviews and glowing reviews, the energy on set was reportedly more complicated. At first, the whispers were easy to ignore. Small rumors about Rachel being strong-willed or overly passionate. Nothing out of the ordinary for a rising star. But the more people talked, the more those whispers started forming a pattern. Some crew members began leaking anecdotes, quietly, anonymously, about Rachel questioning choreography notes and halting production to suggest changes that suited her interpretation. She allegedly clashed with costume designers, arguing certain outfits didn't align with her character's arc. Even camera angles, editing choices, and dialogue reportedly became points of contention. Now, normally, challenging creative direction wouldn't be that unusual. Actors give input all the time. But this wasn't just any film, and this wasn't just any director. Steven Spielberg is famous for his collaborative style, but he's also known to value trust from his cast. Pushback is expected, but not at the cost of harmony. According to insiders, Rachel pushed a little too hard. Some defended her, calling it confidence. Others quietly labeled it hubris. For Spielberg, who's guided everyone from Christian Bale to Drew Barrymore, mentoring young talent was nothing new. But sources claim this situation felt different. Rachel wasn't just contributing ideas, she was challenging the process itself. And even if Spielberg never said it out loud, some insiders claimed his patience was beginning to fray. That's when the tone began to shift. Behind closed doors, her name no longer sparked excitement, it raised eyebrows, And when Spielberg, normally effusive with praise, began mentioning co-stars more than her, people noticed. Still, Rachel's star kept rising in public. She had a new project lined up, one that promised to launch her into the stratosphere, a Disney princess, a live-action legacy, the role of Snow White. And that's where things went from complicated to catastrophic. Landing the role of Snow White should have been the moment Rachel Zegler became untouchable. Disney was betting big, over $250 million big, on a live-action remake of one of its most iconic fairy tales. And with Rachel as the face of the film, she wasn't just the star, she was the brand. But it didn't take long for things to unravel. The first warning sign? Disney's decision to modernize the story. Gone were the seven dwarfs, replaced by magical beings. Gone was the traditional prince's kiss, deemed outdated by today's standards. The film wasn't just a remake, it was a reimagining. And for fans of the original, that felt like a betrayal. Then Rachel spoke. In interviews, she called the original Snow White creepy. She said the prince was basically a stalker. She dismissed the idea of waiting for true love and suggested her version of Snow White wouldn't be saved by a man. Her tone was confident, defiant, maybe even justified from a feminist lens. But in the court of public opinion, it hit like a wrecking ball. Lifelong Disney fans, already nervous about the changes, were now furious. Headlines multiplied, social media exploded, hashtags trended, clips from her interviews spread like wildfire, not as empowering sound bites, but as memes mocking her attitude. The backlash wasn't just loud, it was vicious, and it wasn't limited to the public. Insiders say Disney execs were caught completely off guard by how polarizing their lead actress had become. This was supposed to be a safe bet, a crowd pleaser dripping with nostalgia. Instead, it became a PR landmine, and Rachel Zegler was standing right in the middle of it. The film hadn't even premiered yet, but the damage was already done. Audiences were skeptical, critics were circling, and Disney, once confident, was now bracing for impact. And when the movie finally hit theaters, things went from bad to worse. When Snow White finally premiered, it didn't just underperform, it imploded. The box office numbers were so dismal that Disney reportedly called emergency meetings. This wasn't supposed to happen, not with a legacy title, a massive budget, and months of hype. But audiences weren't buying it, and neither were critics. Reviews were brutal. The film was slammed for being hollow, overly sanitized, and politically calculated. Rachel's performance, in particular, came under fire. Critics said it lacked warmth, charm, and the emotional weight that made Snow White iconic in the first place. But the most damaging blows didn't come from critics. They came from the internet. Instead of addressing the backlash with humility or remorse, Rachel gave what many saw as the worst possible response. She blamed Minecraft. In a now infamous statement, she suggested that the hype for the upcoming Minecraft movie might have distracted audiences from Disney's marketing efforts. The internet didn't just reject the excuse, it torched it. Within hours, the memes were everywhere. Minecraft characters were edited into Disney posters. Videos showed pixelated figures toppling princesses. The phrase, "Snow White lost to the blocks," became a viral punchline. Rachel Zegler, once praised for her poise, was now a recurring joke on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. To make matters worse, she began turning down press appearances. Rumors spread that she was avoiding hard questions. Instead of a coordinated damage control campaign, she seemed to vanish, giving the impression that she was only engaged when things were going well. The public wasn't just disappointed, they felt disrespected. What had started as creative differences and awkward PR evolved into something more personal. Fans accused her of arrogance. Pundits said she lacked self-awareness. And the same platforms that once elevated her now dissected her every word like ammunition. The storm was intensifying, and as the pressure mounted, one person's silence made everything worse. Steven Spielberg. In the chaos that followed Snow White's collapse, many expected someone, anyone, to step in and support Rachel Zegler. Someone with weight, someone whose word could shift public perception, and who better than Steven Spielberg, the man who discovered her, the director who gave her her break, the legend whose endorsement turned her into a star. But Spielberg said nothing. That silence echoed louder than any headline. In Hollywood, where every gesture is dissected, Spielberg's refusal to defend her spoke volumes. While he gave glowing praise to Ariana DeBose, Rachel's West Side Story co-star, calling her mesmerizing, fearless, transformative. His mentions of Rachel were distant, polite, perfunctory. Insiders noticed, fans noticed, industry players definitely noticed. Suddenly, old interviews were being replayed with a new lens. Viewers scanned his expressions, looking for tension. Every smile seemed a little too stiff, every sentence too carefully worded. The same Spielberg who once championed unknowns into icons now seemed to be distancing himself from the very star he created. According to sources close to the production, it wasn't just public silence. Spielberg allegedly grew frustrated behind the scenes during West Side Story's press cycle, drained by disagreements and wary of Rachel's growing reputation. One rumor even claimed he called her horrible to work with, a phrase so uncharacteristic for Spielberg that it sent shockwaves through the industry. And in Hollywood, perception is currency. If the industry's most nurturing director walks away from you, others take notice. Fast, casting agents, studio executives, and directors started whispering, if Spielberg couldn't make it work, who could? Rachel's talent wasn't the issue. It was her image, her reputation, and now, her isolation. Because in Tinseltown, when your biggest advocate goes quiet, it's not just awkward, it's lethal. Hollywood doesn't always cancel you loudly. More often, it just stops calling. As the dust settled around Snow White, rumors of Rachel Zegler being quietly blacklisted began to spread through industry circles. There was no public statement, no official decision, just a slow, creeping silence. Roles that once felt inevitable now felt out of reach. Executives reportedly began removing her from consideration lists. Some talent agents flat out advised their clients to avoid associating with her. Why? Not because she lacked talent. Rachel's voice and screen presence were never in question. But after two massive productions ended in controversy, one with Spielberg and another with Disney, she had become what Hollywood fears most: unpredictable. Each new leak about behind-the-scenes clashes or tone-deaf remarks only deepened the damage. Studios started seeing her not as an asset, but a liability. What if she derailed press tours? What if she alienated fans again? What if she clashed with directors mid-shoot over creative choices? And most importantly, what if the public just didn't want to see her anymore? In an industry that runs on billion-dollar investments, risk tolerance is razor thin, and the unspoken logic became hard to ignore. If Steven Spielberg regrets working with her, why should anyone else take that gamble? The blacklist, if it exists, isn't a formal punishment. It's a ghost, whispered over drinks at Soho House, coded into studio emails, silently echoed in casting meetings. It doesn't slam doors, it just never opens them. And yet, even now, there are voices in the background asking a different question. Is Rachel Zegler truly beyond redemption, or just one good role away from a comeback? Because in Hollywood, careers don't always end with a crash. Sometimes they just fade. For all its cutthroat politics and whisper networks, Hollywood has a soft spot for redemption. It's built into the very DNA of the industry. Countless stars have fallen harder and come back stronger. Robert Downey Jr., Drew Barrymore, even Brendan Fraser. One tearful interview, one critically acclaimed indie film, one viral moment of humility. And the narrative can flip overnight. So, could Rachel Zegler do the same? Some say yes, if she wants to. Industry veterans argue that her youth is actually her greatest asset. She's not permanently damaged, she's just mismanaged. A well-timed apology, a thoughtful press reset, maybe even a raw, no PR filter interview could reframe everything. The public, after all, doesn't hate a mistake. They hate a lack of growth. But there's a catch. Comebacks require one thing Rachel hasn't shown much of yet: humility. Owning the missteps, acknowledging the backlash, understanding that the image she projected, intentionally or not, rubbed people the wrong way. So far, that level of self-reflection has been missing. The Minecraft excuse, the withdrawn press appearances, the impression that she only wants the spotlight when it flatters her. These choices, intentional or not, have chipped away at the goodwill she once had. Still, there's time. Hollywood careers don't die in a single scandal, but they do fade when the silence lasts too long. If Rachel wants to pivot, she might need to start small. An indie film. A role that challenges her. Something that reminds audiences she's not just a viral headline, she's a serious performer. But if she waits too long, if the silence continues, the industry won't pause for her comeback. It'll move on without her. Because in Hollywood, the redemptive arc is always possible, but only for those willing to rewrite their own story. Rachel Zegler's story isn't just about fame, it's about the brutal speed at which perception becomes reality. She went from a viral sensation to Spielberg's chosen star to the face of Disney's most expensive misfire. And somewhere in between, the applause faded, replaced by mockery, criticism, and silence. Not because of one failure, but because of a string of moments, some public, some private, that painted her not as difficult, but as dangerous to a brand. And yet, the truth? It's probably somewhere in the middle. Maybe Rachel was misunderstood, maybe she got bad advice, maybe the pressure of overnight fame, combined with the high-stakes machine of legacy filmmaking, was simply too much too soon. Or maybe she really did let it all go to her head. The public doesn't know for sure, and that uncertainty has become the narrative. Because in Hollywood, silence can be more damning than scandal. When Spielberg doesn't speak up, when Disney doesn't defend, when press junkets go cold, that says more than 1,000 headlines ever could. But there's still a window, a chance, a next chapter, because this town loves nothing more than a good fall, followed by an unforgettable rise. Whether Rachel gets that chance is up to her, and whether she's willing to own her story, flaws, and all. Until then, she remains Hollywood's question mark, a cautionary tale wrapped in talent, controversy, and potential. And in a business where reputations are currency, Rachel Zegler is still trying to cash hers in.